equals WE times UE times DE. What would you say if I told you that this one equation defines your exposure to the world? You're probably thinking I'm crazy. At first glance, you would probably take a look at this equation and think to yourself, I don't know what E means. I don't know what any of that means. And then just pass it off as another absurd algorithm. But let's take a look at the equation a few years down the road. 2013, E equals I times P times R times C times T. Chances are, this equation made as little sense to you as the first one did. But what if I told you that this equation was not only limiting your perspectives on the world, but limiting it more and more as it got more complex? What if I told you that it was limiting your exposure to the world right now, as it takes into account over 100,000 factors? You're probably thinking to yourself, there's no way this could apply to me. I mean, how could a simple mathematical equation define my thoughts, my values, my life? Surely, as a multicultural, as a global citizen, I am in charge of my own thoughts. Surely, I am not so provincial or myopic in my global outlook. How could I be? But what if I told you that this equation was actually there, working behind the scenes, affecting your thoughts for hours and hours daily, without you even realizing it? Don't believe me? Stand up if you have a Facebook account and you scroll through your newsfeed, let's say, at least about once a week. This equation applies directly to you. Now, join the people standing if you have any social media account that you check on a fairly regular basis. Some form of this equation applies to you as well. In fact, it applies to you, it applies to me, it applies to every single one of you standing in this room, and even indirectly applies to the few of you still sitting. So, what is this mysterious equation? This equation, ladies and gentlemen, is the algorithm dictating how Facebook filters your news feeds. To put it simply, social media is everywhere. According to the Pew Research Center, 71% of online Americans have a Facebook account. And even out of that few who don't, 52% have someone else in their households who does, meaning that they are somehow affected by this. And this is only Facebook. When we look at all social media platforms, it becomes evident that this algorithm affects millions. People are spending hours and hours and hours on social media daily, and this has huge psychological implications for society as a whole. Now, at first, it may seem counterintuitive to think that social media is actually limiting our perspectives on the world. After all, if it has such a large user base, if there are so many people using it, wouldn't that mean that it's creating a large network of people, exposing us to more viewpoints and more diversity? Wouldn't that mean that it's making us actually more connected and more aware? Wrong. Social media is actually limiting our perspectives on the world, and all of this boils down to that little algorithm that I started talking about. So let's look at the older version. E equals UE times WE times DE. According to Lars Backstrom, engineering manager for the newsfeed ranking at Facebook, this equation was called EdgeRank and took into account three main factors. First of all, affinity, how close you are to a friend. Second of all, the strength of the action, a like versus a comment versus simply clicking on a post. And then lastly, time decay, the amount of time that passed since the action was taken. Now, this may sound fairly simple, and it was, at the time. However, as I stated, this algorithm has grown tremendously since its origins, now taking into account thousands and thousands of factors. So what does this mean? This means that each of our news feeds are completely personalized to us. This means that, according to software engineers Ansha Yu and Sami Tas, Facebook is even looking at how much time we spend looking at a post before scrolling past it in order to decide whether or not we would be interested in it. This means that they're even trying to make it more user-driven, letting users decide exactly what they want to see. This ensures that it's completely personalized and individualized so that every user sees what they're interested in. And normally, this is a good thing. I mean, think about what it would be like without the filter. There would be thousands and thousands of posts flooding our news feeds every day. We probably wouldn't even get to read all of them. Many of them would be completely irrelevant to our lives. And so, isn't this better off, where we only see what's interesting and appealing to us? No, because it comes at a great cost. According to Steven Johnson in his TED Talk, Where Good Ideas Come From, ideas themselves are networks that are all based off of other ideas. And furthermore, all of these ideas come after thoughtful contemplation and years of meditation and thought. People who claim they're experiencing that magical eureka moment are simply consciously realizing what they have subconsciously been thinking about for a really long time. Now, historically, these ideas came from coffee houses. They came from places where intellectuals would gather together to discuss their ideas about the future of the world. Social media is today's coffee house. According to Ines Mergel, 70% of online Americans get most of their news through Facebook links and 36% through Twitter. The Pew Research Center further confirmed this, adding that 46% of social media users discuss news stories or events, while 50% actually share these stories. And what this means is that all of these news stories, these are what are offering us the new perspectives and the new ideas that drive innovation. This means that social media is becoming a new forum for discussion. But let's think for a minute about what this really means. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine your network. Imagine the people you would interact with without social media. Think about the people you meet in real life. All the Singaporeans down at the local hawker center. The people you meet when you go down to walk your dog. The people at your workplace. The people at your school. The people in your neighborhood. There would be a diversity in the types of people you would be interacting with. And this diversity of people would lead to a diversity of thought and a diversity of ideas and perspectives, without any filtering, without any censoring. But with social media, on the other hand, we are only shown what we truly care about. Pictures of that 3-year-old Syrian refugee dying on a beach are censored out of several Facebook accounts because some algorithm has decided that it might be disturbing for certain people to see, even though it tells an absolutely crucial story about an issue going on in our world today. Even if we have a very diverse set of friends, the algorithm is designed to only show us the information that we care about the most. Regardless of how large a group of people we think we are part of, the information itself is so heavily filtered that our network of ideas is becoming more and more limited by the day, making us far more myopic people. Think about it. All of us here today, we are all multicultural citizens. We are all lucky enough to be part of an international community. We are fortunate enough to have been exposed to more ideas and more viewpoints than the majority of the world. However, we still have our own basic values and our basic innate beliefs that no one has ever thought to question. Let's take charity, for example. We've been told from a young age, you have a moral obligation to give back to the poor. We should donate to the poor. And I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm just saying that there is another side to it. One could argue that charity is actually taking the place of justice, where we are complacently donating money to people instead of actually addressing the issues in the societal structure that are causing poverty in the first place. This just goes to show that every value we hold deep in our hearts, everything that we believe to be innately true has another side to it. And we are not being exposed to this other side to it. Everything we see is through the American perspective, or at most through the Singaporean perspective. But either way, it's through the lens of a first world, developed nation. Ideas are being ingrained in our minds, and social media is simply reinforcing those ideas, and because of that, we never think to actually question them and move forward. But it goes further than that. Again, think about the types of people you would meet without this algorithm. It's more than just the people you'd meet on a day-to-day basis that I was talking about earlier. It's that person that you meet on a random trip to Europe. It's that person that you sit next to on a bus ride one day and just start talking to for 40 minutes. It's that person who was standing next to you at a museum that you started discussing your favorite piece of artwork with. The beauty of all of these scenarios is the randomness. It's the idea that if it wasn't for that one spontaneous, coincidental situation, you may have never even met these people. It's the idea that without the algorithm, you're meeting people who you may not have anything in common with. And this is beautiful. This spontaneity is what leads to creativity. This randomness is what leads to innovation. These new thoughts, these random occurrences that come up when you least expected them, that's what helps you to take a step back, to turn around when you reach a dead end and look at things through a new angle. But ladies and gentlemen, algorithms kill spontaneity. Randomness, by its very definition, cannot exist with an algorithm. And this beautiful process of meeting new people and interacting with people and being exposed to new ideas is being turned into a machine. Nothing but a black and white equation. But ladies and gentlemen, what would you say if I told you that we could break free from this algorithm? What if I told you that we could take this algorithm and turn it around, flip it, and embrace all of the potential that it has to actually go out and meet new people? Because it does have potential, as long as we are able to actually recognize it and grasp hold of it. We need to stop sitting around and waiting for those magical eureka moments to occur, because they're not going to occur. And we need to go out and search for ideas instead and challenge our own viewpoints. We need a new way of thinking, where we get rid of this false illusion that we are more fortunate than all of the other people of past generations and that we are exposed to more of the world than anyone else, and instead recognize that it's time for us to start exploring. Because ladies and gentlemen, all of the ideas are out there. They are out there somewhere, hidden, just beyond the reaches of our fingertips. We need a new way of thinking, where we look beyond what shows up on our newsfeed. When I first came up here today, I told you that an algorithm could control your life. I told you that this algorithm has been controlling your life and limiting your exposure to the world for as long as you know. Now, I'm telling you that we need to break free from this algorithm. We need to take a step back and look beyond all of this so that we can truly dare to dream. Thank you.